Hello, and welcome to the Westward Chronicle. And in this chronicle, we should be looking at pull factors. What drew people to the West in order for them to migrate there and leave everything behind? What was that? And that will be answered in this chronicle. So, why do you think people were attracted to the West? What was it? Was it gold? Was it a new life? See, there's actually two sides. There's push factors and pull factors. See, both these formed an argument for the same thing. Migration was caused by push and pull factors. Firstly, you had push factors. See, this sent people away from the east. Now, obviously, the situation wasn't great. People wanted to travel to the west to get away from problems in the east. Now, before you're wondering, are you going to explain that? The answer is no, because I've covered this in another chronicle. So please have a look at the push factor chronicle, and that will explain everything you need to know. However, on the other side of the same coin, you actually had pull factors. See, these are factors that drew people to the west. And obviously the reasons were varied. You had the idea of riches, instant riches. You can become rich in an instant. See, how many factors do you know that pull people to the west? Have a think about it. See, pull factors varied, and I'll go through them in the following chronicle. See, one key factor was the idea of a new start. People were escaping the east to start anew. It could have been that they were escaping a life of poverty or crime, or just wanted to get away. And obviously this was the perfect start. You see, many settlers were pulled to the west with the idea of propaganda. See, propaganda was spread saying that there's fertile land and it was really cheap. You go there, live there for a couple of years, and you can buy the land up, and it would sound like a fantastic opportunity. See, it wasn't just pull factors, push factors made it a lot easier to spread this message across. There was another pull factor, and that was government encouragement. See, the government actively encouraged people to move to the west, and you might be asking yourself, why would the government do that? And the answer lays in solidifying its claim on territory. You see, the government wanted to make sure that the territory gained from Oregon, California and Texas was theirs to keep, and no one else could get it. Furthermore, the government passed acts such as the Indian Appropriation Act and the Fort Laramie Treaty. The Indian Appropriation Act meant that the Native Americans would end up in reservations, and the Fort Laramie Treaty made them reliant on the US government. And being reliant on the US government meant that acts such as these made it so that the US government could pretty much control the Native American population and decide what it wanted to do with them. See, that wasn't the only thing. It also helped fund expeditions along the Oregon Trail, which helped map out a route from the east to the west, and this made it a lot easier for migrants to go over to the west and claim territory, obviously at the expense of the Native Americans. Take into account that this led to various people, including Langford Hastings, publishing routes for safer passage for settlers to the Oregon Trail. See, this meant that mass migration was easier to achieve. So that brings us on to a simple question. Why do you think the government actively encouraged settlement in the west? Why did they want people to move there? See, the reason was this. They wanted people to settle in the west, so again, no one could challenge their claim to the land. See, by displacing the Native Americans, they had a policy where the settlers would move there, live there, and when they lived there, they'd produce offspring, and the offspring would say, we're born here, so this is our land now. And in essence, it would mean that the Native Americans would lose claim to it. See, once the Native Americans would argue the land being taken from them unfairly, that did cause conflict, and the US government would actively take the side of the US citizens, and they say that, we can't move them, it's unfair on them. So policy actually involved segregating the Native Americans into reservations and bringing more white settlers to populate the land. The idea was simple. It was to create a stronghold on territory, a practice that's continued in parts of the world today. And you might be asking yourself, well, that don't make no sense, but it's actually true. It's nothing new, and America wasn't the first country to do it. See, this was a policy that was carried on from generations before. See, did you know that European colonial powers such as Britain, France and Germany and Spain used this tactic to create their empires? How? By oppressing weaker nations and peaceful nations with superior technology and weapons. It wasn't just them. Even if you go as far back as the Romans, they used the same tactic. They used to steal land and convert the population to the way that they wanted, obviously amalgamating the population into their army or into slavery, and then enforcing them to be part of the Roman lifestyle. Think about it for a second. Why do you think the US government and many empires before it decided to use this tactic? Why was it so effective? Can you think of any other examples where this tactic may have been used? And if so, leave them in the comments below. Another pull factor was the Oregon Trail itself. See, the Oregon Trail was a massive pull factor. Why? Because it was tried and tested, and on top of that, people actually knew that they could get safely from one side to the other and take their families with them and their livestock if needed. See, many people used the Oregon Trail, and it's said by 1869 about 400,000 settlers had used the trail. The most significant pull factor of all was definitely a rare material, and this could make you rich in an absolute instant, and that resource was of course gold. The gold rush that was sparked in 1848 and carried on into 49 was massively influential as being a pull factor. It drew people to the West en masse. See, gold was found in John Sutter's sawmill in California in January 1848, and when this was found, people heard about it and realized, oh, we can become rich in an instant. The president actively encouraged it. President Polk confirmed that gold was in that area, and when he did that, it sparked a massive gold rush. Everyone and their aunt decided we need to head to California and search for gold. People left schools and businesses behind and went out in search of gold. Tens and thousands of people journeyed hoping to make their fortune, and remember, the majority of migrants that actually went there were men, but 8% of the people that went there were women and children. Women in particular who joined their husbands to mine for gold, and obviously a lot of them were not successful. So it could quite easily be argued that the gold rush was the greatest pull factor of them all for a myriad of reasons. See, firstly, the gold rush led to mass migration. I'm not talking about in small numbers, I'm talking about in mass. Now, propaganda was also used by the government. So the idea that you could become rich overnight and you could live the American dream, you can get your own house. Not only that, if you came and mined for gold, and if you did find that gold somehow, you'd be instantly rich, and you could use that gold to buy the cheap land that was available, and you could live a comfortable life. And that brings us on to our last pull factor, that would be religion and nationalism. Actually, it's manifest destiny. The idea that they had a right to the land and they would own all that land. Why? Because God told them to. See, many settlers were pulled to the West in order to achieve this ideal of manifest destiny. If you want to know more about that, please refer to the Manifest Destiny Chronicle. See, instead with this idea that they're spreading the word of God as a missionary or helping people in the West, meant that more and more people flocked there. By doing this, they thought they'd get rewarded, one by gold and two by heaven. They thought that if they contribute to this somehow, they'd get rewarded for it. So what do you think was the most significant pull factor and why? Leave your comments in the comment section below. And that's the end of another chronicle. Obviously, I hope you understand the pull factors that drew people to the West. If you do get a moment, please do leave a like, share the video, and if you get a moment, please do subscribe. And as always, I'll see you in the next chronicle. Thank you for your time. Bye bye.